Imagine waking up at 3:14 a.m., staring at the dark ceiling, your face bathed in the harsh blue light of your smartphone. You just read the Reuters alert that hit the wires. Meta is planning to slash 20% of its workforce. You make $165,000 a year as a product manager at a mid-sized tech firm. You have the beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, the 2 European SUVs in the driveway, the kids in expensive travel sports. On paper, you are the absolute definition of the American dream. But in your primary checking account, you have exactly $2,400. If your firm follows Meta's lead tomorrow, you are exactly 1 month away from complete, catastrophic ruin. You didn't gamble your money away. You didn't make a massive, obvious mistake. You just did everything you were supposed to do. And that is exactly what is destroying you. Because there is a silent mechanism draining your wealth, and you are participating in it willingly, without even knowing it is happening. What almost nobody realizes is that we are living through an epidemic that economists quietly refer to as high-income poverty, and it has never been more prevalent than it is right this exact second. Look at the reality of today, April 16th, 2026. The S&P 500 just crossed 7,080 points this morning. The NASDAQ is shattering records, pushing toward 26,500. We are in the middle of a historic, face-melting bull run, fueled by artificial intelligence, with companies like TSMC reporting 54% earnings growth before the opening bell. There is more money sloshing around the American economy than at any point in human history. Yet, despite this massive accumulation of wealth at the macro level, a terrifying percentage of top-tier earners feel like they are drowning in wet cement. Society tells you that if you are struggling while the stock market is making record highs and you are pulling in 6 figures, you must be incredibly reckless. The internet gurus will scream at you to stop buying premium coffee and cancel your streaming subscriptions. They tell you it is a discipline problem. On the surface, this makes sense. But in reality, that advice is completely useless because it fails to identify the actual disease. The trap you are in was not built by your bad habits. It was built by your success, and it is fueled by the way human beings are biologically wired to process social reality in a hyper-connected world. Let me introduce you to Michael. Michael is 39. 5 years ago, he was making $85,000. He lived in a decent apartment, drove a reliable Honda, and felt completely fine about his life. Then, the promotions happened. He broke the 6-figure mark and eventually climbed to $165,000. When Michael saw that new number hit his direct deposit, he didn't view it as a massive surplus of capital. He viewed it as a correction. He felt he had finally arrived at the level he deserved. So the apartment upgraded to a house with a yard. The Honda upgraded to a luxury crossover because he needed something safer for the kids. The weekend camping trips upgraded to flights and boutique hotels. And this is the part that should worry you. Because at no point did Michael ever feel like he was being extravagant. He was just living in a way that felt entirely appropriate for a senior product manager in his late 30s. But here's where it gets interesting. Michael wasn't just upgrading his life. He was shifting his reference group. When he made $85,000, he unconsciously compared himself to other people making $85,000. Now that he makes nearly double, the people he sits across from in meetings, the neighbors he waves to on Saturday mornings, the parents standing next to him at the soccer field, they are all making $150,000 to $200,000. Without ever making a conscious decision, Michael's brain recalibrated what a normal life looks like. Taking a $5,000 summer vacation didn't feel like a luxury anymore. It felt like the baseline requirement for being a good parent in his social circle. Spending $200 on a Tuesday night dinner out because he was too exhausted to cook didn't feel like a splurge. It felt like a necessary coping mechanism for the stress of his high-paying job. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think lifestyle inflation is driven by ego or greed. It isn't. It is driven by the deeply ingrained human need for assimilation. You are biologically programmed to blend in with your tribe to survive. When your tribe upgrades, your brain interprets keeping up as a matter of social survival. You don't buy the nicer car to show off. You buy it so you don't feel like the odd one out in the executive parking lot. You are simply performing the role of your income bracket. And the cost of that performance is literally every single dollar you earn. But that's not even the real problem. The real problem is what this performance does to the architecture of your life, especially in an economic environment as volatile as ours. Every time you upgrade to fit your new income, you are taking discretionary income and permanently converting it into fixed overhead. When Michael bought the bigger house, he didn't just buy a mortgage. He bought higher property taxes, higher homeowners insurance, triple the utility costs, and a sudden burning desire to buy furniture that actually matched the scale of the new rooms. Suddenly, out of the $9,000 hitting Michael's bank account every month after taxes, $7,000 of it is spoken for before he even wakes up on the first of the month. The structural bloat of his life is so massive that his margin for error has been completely erased. And this is where everything starts to break. Because Michael isn't just broke on a spreadsheet. He is becoming cognitively impaired. There is fascinating research out of Princeton regarding the psychology of scarcity, proving that when a human being lacks a financial buffer, even if their income is incredibly high, their mental bandwidth physically shrinks. It is like running a supercomputer with too many background applications open. The constant low-grade hum of anxiety consumes massive amounts of processing power. And look at the background applications running in Michael's brain today. He is watching the news about the Middle East, hearing rumors about Iran conditionally opening the Strait of Hormuz, and he watches oil prices ticking around $88 a barrel. He flips the channel and sees the president on Fox Business threatening to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Michael watches the 10-year Treasury yield fluctuate, and his chest tightens, because his adjustable rate debt is tied to these exact macroeconomic moves. Gold is sitting over $4,800 an ounce, because the smartest money in the world is terrified of instability, and Michael is terrified too. But instead of buying gold or index funds, Michael is expressing his terror by buying a more expensive lifestyle to convince himself he is safe. Because Michael's brain is exhausted by the daily management of his financial tightrope and the overwhelming geopolitical noise, he becomes highly reactive. He loses the ability to make long-term, strategic decisions. He knew he should have bought into tech stocks months ago. He saw the AI wave coming. He knew TSMC was going to crush earnings today. But he didn't have the cash to invest, because his capital is trapped in the leather seats of his SUV and the vaulted ceilings of his living room. When the weekend comes, he is so drained from keeping the plate spinning that he throws money at convenience. He orders expensive delivery. He buys overpriced toys for his kids out of guilt for working so much. And he tells himself he will finally sit down and figure out a budget next month. But next month never comes, because the structure of his life guarantees that he will always be exhausted. Now, I want to show you the flip side of this reality. I want to introduce you to Thomas. Thomas is exactly the same age as Michael. He works in the same industry, in the same city, and he makes the exact same salary of $165,000. But if you looked at Thomas, you would assume he makes half of that. He lives in a neighborhood that is perfectly safe, but entirely unpretentious. He drives a 7-year-old Toyota that he bought used and paid off 3 years ago. His vacations involve road trips and renting modest cabins. From the outside, Thomas looks like a guy who is doing okay, maybe coasting through the middle class. But if you open Thomas's financial dashboard, you would see a net worth approaching $800,000 in liquid, untouchable assets. What Thomas understood, and what Michael completely missed, is the concept of income decoupling. When Thomas got his series of massive raises in his early 30s, he made a cold, calculated decision to sever his lifestyle from his paycheck. He realized that the greatest financial superpower a human being can possess is the ability to absorb success in absolute silence. He anchored his standard of living to an $85,000 salary, and he built a psychological firewall around the rest. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Thomas didn't achieve this through superhuman willpower. Willpower is a finite resource, and if you try to use willpower to fight your environment will win every single time. Instead, Thomas used a system of forced friction. He knew his own psychology. He knew that if he saw the money sitting in his checking account, he would eventually find a completely rational, highly justified reason to spend it. So he didn't just set up a budget, he engineered artificial scarcity. The day Thomas's paycheck clears, a brutal, automated siphon kicks in. Before he even has time to log into his banking app, massive chunks of capital are ripped out of his primary account. They are sent to a brokerage account at a completely different institution. An institution where he intentionally refused to download the mobile app. He made it incredibly inconvenient to access his own wealth. He looks at his checking account on a Tuesday morning, and he sees a balance that makes him feel slightly poor. He feels a healthy, manageable pinch of scarcity, and that entirely manufactured feeling prevents him from upgrading his life. What almost nobody realizes is that Thomas isn't depriving himself. He is purchasing immunity. While Michael is scrolling Reuters at 3 a.m., having a panic attack about the 20% layoffs at Meta, and wondering if his company is next, Thomas is sleeping like a baby. Thomas saw the exact same news alert, but his resting heart rate didn't even flutter. Because if Thomas loses his job tomorrow, his automated investments and massive cash reserves ensure he doesn't have to change a single thing about his daily routine for the next 5 years. While Michael is stressing over Trump and Powell fighting over interest rates, Thomas is quietly profiting off the S&P 500 crossing 7,000 points. Because his money was blindly, automatically deposited into index funds every 2 weeks for the last decade. He traded the public performance of wealth for the private reality of freedom. His money has bought him a bulletproof psychological vest, allowing him to navigate the world without fear, without desperation, and without the suffocating need for approval. And Michael didn't realize this until it was too late. He hit 44, and the biological reality of aging began to set in. This is a concept we call the human capital crossover. In your 20s and 30s, your greatest asset is your physical and mental energy, your human capital. You can work 60-hour weeks, sleep for 5 hours, and bounce back. You trade that boundless energy for cash. But as you cross into your mid-40s, that energy naturally begins to wane. You can't pull the all-nighters anymore. The stress doesn't just bounce off you. It settles into your joints, your lower back, your blood pressure. If you have played the game correctly, by the time your human capital starts to decline, your financial capital should be rising to replace it. Your money should be doing the heavy lifting, generating returns that eventually replace your physical labor. But because Michael inflated his lifestyle to consume every dollar he made, his financial capital never grew. He is now 44 years old. His energy is dropping, but his overhead is higher than ever. He realizes with absolute horror that he cannot stop. He cannot take a step back. He cannot pivot to a less stressful career. He is trapped on a treadmill that is speeding up, and his legs are getting heavy. He is staring down the barrel of a life where he will have to grind at maximum capacity until he is 65, just to maintain a lifestyle that doesn't even make him happy anymore. He is a hostage to the life he built to impress people he doesn't even really like. And this is the part that should really keep you awake at night. Because the window to fix this is incredibly unforgiving. When you are in your 30s and early 40s, you are in the prime compounding years of your life. Every dollar you deploy into an asset during this decade has enough runway to multiply massively before you actually need it. The stock market is proving that right now. But every dollar you sink into the structural bloat of an upgraded lifestyle is not just a dollar lost. It is the exponential ghost of that dollar, the wealth it would have become, vanishing into thin air. You are essentially borrowing against the peace of mind of your future self to buy the temporary validation of your current peers. So how do you escape this? How do you step off the track when you are already running at full speed in a world that is screaming at you to consume? The answer is not comfortable, and it will push back against everything your ego demands of you. The first step is acknowledging the brutal reality that your income is not your wealth. Your income is just the speed at which money flows through your fingers. Your wealth is what gets caught in the net. If you want to break the cycle of high-income poverty, you have to engage in a process of ruthless pruning. You have to look at your life not as a collection of rewards you have earned, but as a corporate balance sheet that is bleeding cash. You don't start by clipping coupons. You start by attacking the structural pillars of your overhead. You have to ask yourself terrifying questions. Do you actually need the 4,000 square foot house? Or do you just need the feeling of importance it gives you when you pull into the driveway? Are you driving that specific car because it gets you to work? Or because it acts as a wearable resume for your success? You have to be willing to initiate what I call ego abdication. You have to actively decide that you are okay with people thinking you are less successful than you actually are. You have to let your friend who makes half your salary drive a nicer car than you. You have to smile and nod when your brother-in-law subtly flexes his new kitchen renovation, knowing full well he financed it at 9%, while you just quietly purchased another block of index funds. You have to starve your ego to feed your future. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where the hope actually lives. The moment you start dismantling the facade, something incredible happens to your nervous system. When you sell the car with the agonizing monthly payment and buy something modest in cash, it hurts your pride for exactly 1 week. But on the first day of the next month, when that payment doesn't come out of your account, the physical relief is overwhelming. When you stop bleeding capital to maintain your social standing, the background anxiety that has been humming in your brain for the last decade begins to power down. You take the massive cash flow you just freed up and you build the automated siphon. You create the artificial scarcity. You force your lifestyle to fit inside a much smaller, highly defended perimeter, and you let the surplus spill over into the dark, quiet machinery of wealth accumulation. You stop tracking your success by the visible upgrades in your life, and you start tracking it by the months of runway you have quietly stockpiled. You have to understand that the system is perfectly designed to keep you broke. The entire economy relies on you taking your hard-earned human capital and immediately trading it for depreciating liabilities that signal status. The marketers, the banks, the car dealerships, the real estate agents, they all depend on your deep-seated fear of falling behind. They are banking on the fact that you will prioritize looking rich over actually being free. The people who win this game are the ones who realize that the ultimate luxury is not a zip code or a hood ornament. The ultimate luxury is having options. It is the ability to walk away from a toxic boss without blinking. It is the ability to ignore the news cycle because you are insulated from the shockwaves. It is the absolute certainty that if the economy collapses tomorrow, your family will not miss a single meal or lose a single night of sleep. You are standing at a crossroads right now. You can keep playing the game the way Michael played it. You can keep letting your income dictate your overhead, riding the edge of your cash flow, performing your success for a social circle that is secretly just as panicked and broke as you are. You can keep pushing the anxiety down, hoping that the next raise will finally be the one that gives you room to breathe, even though history proves it never will. Or you can do what Thomas did. You can step into the shadows. You can lower your anchor, automate your wealth, and embrace the quiet, unglamorous reality of actual financial independence. You can choose to be invisible today so that you can be invincible tomorrow. The next time your paycheck hits your account, I want you to look at that number. Really look at it. And ask yourself, with absolute honesty, who is that money really working for? Is it buying your freedom? Or is it just funding the velvet-lined prison you built for yourself? Because the clock is ticking, your energy is finite, and the window to change your trajectory is closing a little bit more every single day. The choice is yours, but you cannot delay it forever. What are you going to do when you wake up tomorrow?